And
we're good.
We're good. All right. Good evening. Welcome, everyone. I know that people are still coming into the cafeteria. And as you're hearing this beeping or ding dong, those are people online who are trying to get into the Zoom link that we provided for our community. So the first thing I want to say is please forgive Dr. McKay and I. Facilitating like a live session with a Zoom session is something we don't normally do. So I would anticipate we're probably going to have some challenges, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to get through this with, you know, relatively few mistakes so that we can hear from all of you in the audience live as well as the people at home. Just a couple of housekeeping things. For the people who are in the audience live, if you notice, there's a little tiny, almost small puck-shaped microphone on this stool over here. There's another one over here by the camera. When it's time for you to speak, if we want your comments to be heard by our at-home audience, which we do, you're going to have to be relatively close to those microphones. So especially for the people in the back, I may ask you to come up if that's okay. It's really important that we hear from a variety of stakeholders and that we talk about being really transparent with what we're trying to do. So does everybody understand that if I may ask you to come up? I apologize for the inconvenience, but I think it would be good for the folks at home who couldn't be here live or maybe who are uncomfortable to hear the comments from our live audience. So I appreciate you assisting us with that. Mr. Shea is still admitting people to our Zoom meeting. It looks like we've got 31 participants. I did want to start with kind of where this whole thing began. So this was kind of advertised as an opportunity for stakeholders and people in the community to talk about the core values of the Vernon Township School District. This was born out of a financial roadmap that we're talking about with the Board of Education. And I don't know if Mr. Shea is able to project our slide, so we do have a couple of anchoring slides, and there's some audience participation. There's actually a lot. So I hope you came prepared to participate. So he's going to screen share. Perfect.
I got a lot going on the screen.
I know. You're doing great, Mr. Shea. He's admitting people to the waiting room. He's sharing slides.
That's to the bottom.
All the things we can do with technology we didn't think we could do, right?
All the things that Matt can do.
All the things Matt, right.
Not what Chuck can do.
And I think you have to hit present in order for the, whatchamacallit to work. The pull everywhere when we get to that point. Good, okay. So this is what we were just talking about, right? It's a town hall meeting identifying the Vernon Township School District core values. Mr. Shea, if you don't mind, and want to advance, I know.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it. Thank you. Okay. So this is a story that most of you have heard before. We're not trying to, to talk about this over and over and over again. I see people in this room who are well aware of the $10 million challenge that we are facing. And I'm also seeing some folks that may not be aware of the impact that the loss of state aid is having on our school district. But it's really, really important that we start to talk about this. So over about a 6-year time frame, and we're in the middle of this right now, we're losing about $10 million from the state of New Jersey. It's quite a significant amount of money. It's already having some serious impact on our district. Dr. McKay, can you talk just a little bit about Retire Not Replace and how that's worked for us over the last couple of years?
In the last couple of years, we've tried to allow our attrition of teachers, because they're moving into retirement, allow us the cost savings that we need in order to not make cuts in programs. So in the past 2 years, we've had approximately 55 people retire, and we've tried at times not to replace them, but to move people and transfer people to make sure that we had classes covered, so that we tightened our schedule, and it's now tight as a drum, in order to make sure that the fact of the matter is 81 to 83% of all the expenditures in this district are salaries and benefits. So there's very little wiggle room with other things. We often hear people talking about cutting this or cutting that, but really it's about personnel. So what we've tried to do is make sure that we did well by our people, kept our great people, and as people retired, just not replace them. Now, we are replacing a couple people this year, as you probably know. And in the future, there will be times where a person retires and we have to replace them.
Right.
As a matter of fact, we're getting to the point now
we are.
where this is not going to work as well in the future as it has in the past. So we're really concerned now about the next 2 years financially and on how that could play out. So we thought conversation with everyone.
Right. And it's really one of the reasons why we need to talk about this now. The other bullet you see up there is the closing of Walnut Ridge. You know, I know that the people in the audience in our community know that we recently closed the Walnut Ridge Elementary School. Those students will be attending Cedar Mountain in September. And that, of course, is proving to be a whole nother challenge when you talk about, you know, coronavirus, right? We had some questions about that at our last board meeting. We talked about it. So, but we still have to take a look at the district footprint, our facilities footprint, see if it's the right size for the district. It's one of the things that a couple of our board members have talked about. We have to find a way to do the best we can in maintaining student program if that's what we collectively as a community feel is the most important thing for our district. And that's why we're talking about core values. Mr. Shea, can you advance the slide? So here's what I'm worried about, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's something we've been talking about kind of at the district level
Yes.
for the past few weeks. Every once in a while, we get a notice from the Department of Education that says revised state aid figures are now available. And every time we get that notification, I start to panic. I know Dr. McKay panics, Mr. Kepnes panics, and we log into the state of New Jersey website. So far, knock on wood, we have not been reduced any further for this coming school year. However, a portion of our state aid, a portion of our budget comes from the state, right, is state aid. And the state aid is actually, you know, it's made up of a couple of things, right? It's based on income tax and sales tax. So think about what's happened in New Jersey. We have over 1 million residents that are out of work in New Jersey. It means that they're not earning an income, right? So then that's being impacted. Perhaps they're not shopping as much as they were, so sales tax is impacted. And what we are hearing unofficially is that COVID-19 could have far more serious financial repercussions than the already devastating state aid reduction that we're already looking at. So imagine the $10 million hole that we are faced with, plus additional reductions because of COVID-19. Now, I don't know that for certain, but I can tell you that many financial analysts are talking about it now. We're starting to hear some rumblings at the state level that there may be some further reductions. 2 years ago, this happened. Do you want to talk about that, Chuck?
And 2 years ago, we found out on July 4th that they were going to cut us an additional $900,000. So we had already made our plans for the school year. We had already hired everybody. We'd already put out contracts, and then we had to make those cuts.
Right.
Our fear is that because of the delay, the July 15th date for people to submit their income tax, that the state really doesn't know where it stands right now with its funds. So we're hoping that we don't hear something at the end of August or September that tells us that there will be further dramatic cuts in our budget. But we are worried about that, and that is a real concern. And other districts have been hit in the last two pronouncements from the state. So we are worried about that. We've been cut so heavily that we're hoping that that's it. But the truth of the matter is we are very worried about it.
Yeah, and it's definitely something we have to be cognizant of. So with that in mind, and with our general financial predicament in mind, the board, Dr. McKay, myself, and Mr. Kepnes talked about a financial roadmap, and it includes hearing from stakeholders. That's really important. So Mr. Shea, could you advance to the next slide? Thank you. So when you talk about, you know, a budget, and we're not going to get in the weeds here because we do that at the board meetings a lot. If you want to look back at any of our budget discussions, there are many online. And you can see those on our school district website. We archive all of our meetings. They're all videotaped so that you can take a look at those. But basically, revenue is the ability to infuse funding into the school district. That's done by property taxes. It's done by state aid. There are things like grants, tuition if people are paying tuition into our district, and other sources. And then costs are really everything, right? I mean, Dr. McKay said before, most of it, about 80% are salaries and benefits. And those are the fine folks that work in our district every single day. Teachers, secretaries, custodians, administrators, you know, groundsmen, coaches, all of the folks that work here in the district. And that's about 80% of our budget, which is quite hard to control. Over the last 2 years, we have adopted that retire, not replace to try to bring that cost down a little bit. And we've done a very good job, but there comes a time we're not going to be able to do that anymore. And we're kind of at that crossroads. Mr. Shea, can you go to the next one? Again, All right, so we're going to do an activity in just a minute. We're not going to click on this link. We're actually, in a minute, as soon as I talk about this, we're going to go to the next slide, and I'm inviting you to use Poll Everywhere. If you haven't used it and you have a cell phone, you can use it. So if you have a cell phone, you can take that out. Basically, what we're trying to do tonight, and this is the first of 3 sessions, is to identify what you value most. And for the people at home, they can participate as well. We're going to look for peaks and valleys, basically the things that come from you about things you value most in the district, and then what the possible trade-offs are. We're not going to talk about trade-offs tonight. That's something I'll come back and visit folks probably the end of August, beginning of September. You'll be hearing a lot from me over the summer. And when we go to the next screen in just a moment, there's a Poll Everywhere link. So Matt, let's see if we can advance and hopefully, okay. Activity not found. All right, we were afraid that might happen. Do you want to go back and use the link? We're admitting people. We hadn't done it. I hadn't linked the Poll Everywhere before. It was not deleted. I did it this afternoon. This one, let's see if this one works.
Yep. What's up?
Oh no. All right, so it's not gonna work. Mr. Shea, any advice on how I can make those links work? Or no, because I did it under mine.
Can you bring it up on your device and then maybe I can run you fast?
Maybe. I have to go into presentation mode. Sorry, folks. Like I said, we may run into some challenges. There's a reason that that we wanted to do this. Oh, it's not working on there. Part of the reason that I wanted to do this was for anonymity. I really wanted to allow folks to respond anonymously. It's important that people are able to talk about what they want to talk about and not have it by one person. All right, it's not going to work. I'm so sorry. Right, Mr. Shea?
You want me to whip up like a Google form or something?
Yeah, you're going to have to, Matt. I can get in. I can get in the Poll Everywhere, but
Did it work on yours?
no.
Let me try one other thing.
I don't have it set up in my account. You have it set up in yours.
We need this link.
For now, I can't.
Why don't we talk about the values while Matt sets up a Google sheet, and then we can have people go in.
Yeah, I mean, what I was hoping was.
At least folks online.
You log into your Poll Everywhere on the computer over here.
Should
Say
do
that
it
again?
If you log into your account from
on Matt's computer.
You can log in there, then I'll take your MacBook and I'll play with it.
I logged in.
Yep. You're in on this one, right?
I think so. I didn't get to look at it. So, Matt, you want me to go into the Google Slides, or you want me to log in under? I should be logged in here. Oh, and there's people getting in the waiting room. Let's see. Activity not found. Let's see if I can. You know what? Why don't I do it this way? Let me go into Poll Everywhere. I might be able to just give you the link.
That's the question.
Did you find it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to give them like the prompt.
Yeah.
But then we won't be able to see, you might be able to screencast the results. Is that what you're thinking?
Well, I'm hoping that me opening it with your account will allow it.
In the meantime, you all can start thinking perhaps about what you value most about the district, or what your children value most, the experiences they've had, the experiences, if you've got very young children, about what they anticipate having as they get older and go through our district.
There it is.
Yeah, but the URL's not coming up for some reason. Let me try to log into Poll Everywhere. Part of the reason is that I would prefer that people have the ability to remain anonymous, because sometimes what happens is that one person says something and then somebody else says, oh yeah, that's a great idea, you know, but they don't always have the opportunity to speak how they really feel. But we may have to.
Can someone try that link that I've highlighted on the screen?
Yes.
I allow support.
And I don't know my,
Yeah.
Right, I got that part.
Karen DeVito, 926.
And if you type that in, it does-
/6?
926.
and what is it, where does that take you? I'm not able to get into my, let's try the other one.
Yeah, I'm in. Did everybody else, did people get in?
But then we can't, I don't know that we can see the word cloud.
Oh, you don't want.
It's very frustrating.
Anything else?
It worked from my computer at the office, but did you get in?
Mm-hmm.
You're in?
Oh, I'm getting some.
Are you?
It seems to be working.
Thanks, Jen. That was Jen's voice.
I'm taking the poll, so I guess it's working.
So, Mr. Shea, is there a way to screencast what you're seeing or no?
That is an excellent question.
That's what I was hoping for. That's what was supposed to happen, but on your screens, is it coming up?
Yeah, the survey is.
Okay.
Put our one word in.
So in the meantime, can the people who are seeing it on their phones, I don't know if Dr. McKay can, what are some of the things that are coming up?
Are you logged in on that computer under Karen's account?
Is that one question?
That's
Yeah.
probably how you see the
It lets you
results, right?
respond like.
I can see it on her.
It should just be one time. It's letting you respond multiple times.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
So if you have responded
One
once,
time.
it lets me respond again. But I called.
So what word is largest on the screen? On your screens? I can't see it.
I can only see the one I entered.
You can see the one you entered?
Yeah. It just lets you answer
Music,
again.
program, band.
Thank you.
That's right.
All right, What-
Opportunities,
Mr. Shea, tell me what some of them are.
friendships,
I heard music, program, band, opportunities,
Friendships.
spirit, arts,
spirit, arts,
community,
community.
academics,
Let's give people a few more minutes now that it's starting to work. Other ones that come up, Mr. Shea?
do this. Really ghetto fabulous fashion. If you're like, I saw the IT guy do this really ghetto thing. Hold on. It'll work.
Good.
Let's see, good idea.
All right, so everyone can see at home.
Listen, you are innovative. Oh, I see it.
Watch, I can even zoom in.
There it is. And you could put that maybe as the big screen, right? Like minimize everybody else. Okay. So it's starting to work. My apologies for getting it wrong with some links, but I'm not an IT person. Thank goodness we have Mr. Shea. Okay,
All right,
so.
that's as good as it gets.
Okay, so these are some of the things. So people from home or other folks. Okay, Vicky sees it now. Figures, updates. Thank you, MacBook. It'll go away. So I'm seeing things like comprehensive, friendships, opportunities, music, arts, band. Music has come up a couple of times. Teachers, program. It says rounded. I wonder if that's part of well-rounded. I see STEM. I see academics,
Mm-hmm.
right? Teachers. So we're going to give it just maybe, I don't know, another minute to see if that word cloud changes at all from our folks at home that are putting in their words. And then what I'd like to do is to ask the people that are here, because you are still representative of what we're seeing on the screen. We're going to break down these items, and there are stations all around the room, more than 6 feet apart. They're like 10 or 20 feet apart. There are pieces of white paper, and I have markers, and we have hand sanitizer, and we'll ask you to split up and to start to generate a little bit more conversation about some of these things. So let's see if anything has changed on the screen. Not really?
Well, I think it's saying the poll is full. Is there any way to allow more people to participate?
I don't think so. Yeah, it's
Oh,
full.
you just, oh, so there's a free
There's no money in the budget for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't going to purchase my own. I thought about it, but the cheapest one's like $120. So anyway, maybe next time. But
What's your response limit? How many-
I think a response is 30. To be honest, I didn't know we'd have so many people. I'm thrilled that we have so many folks. But we have 2 more opportunities for these sessions, and we'll talk about that later on. So I'll see if we can look into something that maybe gives us a little bit more breadth so we can get more folks responding. And then we can facilitate this a little bit differently. So I see music and band, right? Those are together. I think things like music, how many spots do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there are 5 sticky charts on the walls. Thank you. Right? Why don't we call music and the arts 1, STEM 2, academics 3, teachers 4,
Community and
and
friendship.
community and friendships 5. All right, so what I would ask for those people who are willing to participate is to, so the next part of the slideshow says, in Forbes magazine in 2019, they said, if your culture were a person, how would you describe its personality? So we're going to ask you to use the chart paper and the markers to expand on what the responses were from Poll Everywhere. For example, if somebody said music, what about music do students and parents value? Why is it important to our school culture or expectations for families and students? So again, it's an exercise to talk about what is it about music or STEM do students and parents value? And why is it important to our school culture or expectations for families and students? Does everybody understand kind of what we're trying to do here? So the categories were number 1, music, number 2, STEM, number 3, and when I say music, it was music and the arts, because that came up, right? So music and the arts was 1, 2 was STEM, 3 was academics, 4 was teachers, and 5 was community and friendship. Any volunteers who want to get started? Oh,
Yep.
see hands already. Good job. Pick a location.
Good, grab a,
You know where you're going?
Yeah, I was gonna go to music.
good, all right.
All right. So that's what music and the arts.
I'll come around, take pictures of each
Yes.
group's working.
We need somebody to take
Okay.
STEM. Which one are you headed to?
Oh, she's doing music in the arts?
She's going to do music and the arts. Does somebody want to do STEM?
We're here for music.
Good.
But I'm here for music.
That's okay. Again, it's just a, but people are going to chime in from the waiting room. Yep. So that we can generate some stuff from there. Music, STEM, academics was 1. Does somebody want to take academics? Somebody in the back has academics. 4 is teachers. Does somebody want to take teachers? So there was a chart there. And the last one was community and friendship. And Mr. Shea, if we have people chiming in on the chat, we can also start to record some of that stuff.
Yeah.
If we can.
I have them chatting in the chat.
Good.
Chatting in the chat room. I don't know if you want to bring it up, the chatting, so we can see it. And for the folks that are sitting, feel free to stand up and stretch your legs a little bit. For example, somebody wrote extracurricular opportunities. Where do we think that one goes? Is that community, friendship? Is that music and the arts provides community? For most children, the arts, whether performance or fine arts, is the reason they want to be there every day, along with the bonds of their friends. Vernon's strong sense of community. So for everybody who's at home, the 5 categories are music and the arts, STEM, academics, teachers, and friendship community. So if people could start writing into the chat reasons why in those areas we think they're of value. So what is of value in STEM? For example, in STEM, it might be a community, but it might also be things like innovation. It might be things like a career opportunities. It might be things like college preparation, right? It might be things like fulfilling your interests when you're in school, right, for a high school student. So those are some, okay, so somebody at home wrote, community important for next generations, build relationships with others. Who has community? Community, teachers. I think somebody had that one. Where's community? There were 4? Maybe there were 4. I'll take the notes on community then. I thought there was another one, maybe there wasn't. Next generation to build relationships with others they meet not normally. I'm actually going to take a picture of the chat so that I don't have to worry about not taking notes.
Don't worry, I'm going to save the chat as well.
Oh, you're the best. That's right. Thank you, Mr. Shea.
Do we have somebody writing about community?
No, but we're taking,
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Shea's taking the chat down. Yeah. Sports for some, DECA for others, and theater or band for others. I'm not sure what category that goes into. What do you think? Community? Sports, DECA, and theater, music and arts provide cognitive benefits and cross over to academics. So under academics, cognitive connection. Is somebody doing academics? Are we done with that one? Let's add that
We
one.
have academics.
Is that
in the back.
academics?
Mhm.
I'm gonna add cognitive connection. Athletics says community pride. Thank you so much. Sports, teamwork, goals, pride and tradition. Okay.
Playing music with other people is important to me, and school is the only place I can do that because there aren't any kid musicians in my neighborhood.
You know, we have to tell people at home, all the chats are public right now, so.
Yep.
Let's give everybody at home maybe 5 more minutes to give us some feedback. All right, it looks like we have a lot of Any other things from the folks that are here? I mean, I would encourage you to get up and take a walk around and see if you'd like to add to anything, especially if you weren't part of one group or another. So I think it's important. You are community stakeholders. You are representatives of our families and our parents and our students. So take a walk. You can star things perhaps that you think are of extreme value. You can add some things that maybe we haven't talked about. Oh, it's a good thing that Jen didn't mean for that to be private because it went all over.
I kind of don't understand the exercise.
You kind of what? Don't understand the exercise? We're talking about the core values of our district, right? Thank you, Dina. So what will happen, unfortunately, in the next couple of years is that we're going to have to trim even further. So the exercise tonight and over the next 2 sessions is really to try to elicit as many stakeholders and as much feedback as possible so that in the next year, when we're looking at budget challenges, we know what you all value as our community.
So all these values encompass a student's day.
Right.
There is no, because depending on the student's learning level, you've got, and not pointing out anything specific, but you've got my middle of the road student who does 85 and above.
Right.
You've got your honor students, you have your special needs students.
Yep.
Aren't the core values on each one of those categories student-wise? Because when I thought core values was going to refer to core values versus academic, core values versus extracurricular.
Right.
Conversation
Well,
right now?
so here's the thing. Notice I kept saying things like core values, and I didn't want to steer you to program or to people. and we have a myriad of responses, right? So if I had said the things you value of our programs, things like community might not have come up and teachers might not have come up, right? It might have been program only.
You can't do
Do
it
you know what I
without
mean? I know,
And
I
you
know.
can't do it without quality.
That's right.
Quality
That's right.
Based on the restrictions and guidelines of our state.
Right. Well, and that's the challenge. I mean, the reality is we have a very comprehensive district at this point, and we probably offer more than what is required. And in the next few years, we may have to look at how to balance those things equitably so that we have a budget that we stay under.
But if you take certain aspects, and I guess that's where, see, core values, I still thought you were talking about primary curriculum versus the extras.
Right.
You take away
Well, it could be.
the extras,
Mhm.
well, then you only need a 4-hour day,
I know.
5 days a week.
Maybe. Maybe. You know, I understand what you're
You
saying.
need the second language function in our community, function in the world.
I know. Well, then that if that's
That falls under.
a value, then that should be on the academics paper. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry, I just didn't understand the.
No, it's okay. And we're gonna break it out a little bit more once people are done kind of describing a little bit.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. There was talk of different people being interested.
Lucas, did you take a shower yet?
Yeah, that's the
But you laid back down in your bed.
Yeah.
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 that one.
Yeah, we, the board mentioned and they heard different. As opposed to conversation. Well, that's the whole thing. The whole thing is we're not really sure. Enrollment for kindergarten is real. The parents are right, so we're not really sure where they are. And the enrollment has been steady for the last year. Yeah, yeah, but then we always have it. We always have the. So if we, because we limit the numbers, if we were to go right now with the numbers, they haven't changed really from last year. However, there is a feeling in our community that we're booming because young people have moved out of the cities. And so the board is, yeah, the board is looking. No, it's just that there are certain groups that get very unaccessible. So in any of course, band, theater, sports, and all the things that going to high school. That's possible.
What makes the most sense to coming right?
To September.
Yes, like everyone has their.
So it's just 2 weeks for September because the season begins.
So,
2 weeks. So it'll be later in November.
so can we send an email?
We are.
I mean, you're right. We're like
So
that.
things get- Okay.
So like you're gonna see extra work that doesn't need to get. Okay, but they would still be on in terms of being a highlight. I'll check with each board meeting. And or I'll just check with. Yeah, I mean. So Thursday, Superintendent suggested that you just check on checking boxes. That makes sense. Yeah. So there is one, I'm not gonna email again.
They said there would be
Yeah, kind of, and kept saying, well, order
I don't.
Good. Good. We're not hearing from the teachers for the most part, but
It's okay.
yep.
So let's give everybody like 2 more minutes maybe to put your final thoughts up on the charts. We really have 61 people at home. Wow.
What's that?
Chuck, thank you.
Great to use that program.
Thing.
I think I'll have to look at my stuff on, so I can even answer it.
If I sent these posters to you,
I originally sent it.
See, great minds think alike.
Mike,
So, yeah, and then you can go back to like presentation mode. I can't believe I did whatever I did with the links, but
everybody. I don't hear.
I don't even know.
yeah. Do you want to go back to the slideshow?
That spread someone Friday, part of it.
You want a slideshow, or you want me to try to get these?
You could do the slideshow with the chat, right? Or no, you have to do you can't do both. Do the slideshow because I'm going to bring everybody back.
Let me check one more time to see if I got it.
All right, so I'd say wrap up. Anything else you want to put on the charts, please do so, and then come back to your seats, and we're going to bring this back together and talk about it a little bit and where we go from here. Okay. Responsibilities. Okay. Good. So you can, there you go. And if you want to advance, Mr. Shea, once you get there, thank you. Okay. So these are, I wanted to put up the other opportunities that people have, and then I'm going to tell you why we've kind of gone through this exercise. So tonight, obviously, is Monday, July 27th. We're going to facilitate kind of a smaller one over at Walnut Ridge. We're doing a morning one, like an 8 o'clock in the morning. I figure for people who can't get to an evening meeting, perhaps for people who want to come before they go to work, you know, over in the superintendent's office in the library, the media center there at Walnut Ridge, so that we can be socially distanced, wearing masks, and engaged in the same kind of activity. For those of you who came tonight, you don't need to come again, right? I mean, this is your opportunity to tell your neighbors, other classmates, other people in the community, other parents that there are some other opportunities. We'll do another one here again on August 11th. It is at 6:30 at night, but it's a Tuesday instead of a Monday. And then I wanted you to know about the other data, right? So as we're collecting your feedback, all of these things go into the makeup of the roadmap of where we have to go. So with the Board of Education in June, I think Mr. Annunziata probably facilitated the discussion, but everybody in the board gave some feedback, and that was a Zoom meeting or a hybrid meeting, but either way, it was recorded. So at home, if you wanted to take a look at it, you would hear from the board members what their vision was, and certain themes that emerged were things like comprehensive high school, diversity of program. You may have heard us talking about that a few times. You can go back and look. Surveys to staff and families. So all those things aren't out yet. Just like the survey that we sent out for, questions about the reopening. We'll be sending out some surveys that start to facilitate more of this discussion and talk about the core values and about the programs and how people feel. As you know, we don't really have the ability to get to anybody who's not a parent. But it doesn't mean they can't come to these meetings. These meetings are open to the public. So if you have a neighbor who doesn't have anybody in the school, please encourage them to come to one of these meetings so that their voice can be heard, or to log on to the Zoom, right? They don't have to be here live. We're also working on a survey that's going to go out to the class of 2020. So Ms. Kudenkopf, who's our supervisor of guidance, has that drafted already, but it's really important as our graduates leave that we start to talk to them about what were your experiences in the Vernon Township School District? What are the things that you most valued and why? And how can we continue to provide a comprehensive program to future generations of Vernon Vikings? Mr. Shea, can you advance? And this is really where this whole thing lands. So we're really looking at continued articulation with the community and the Board of Ed. We've talked an awful lot about transparency, right? So it's super important that this feedback comes from you. We had a lot of activity in the chat, over 60 people. Like I said, we're going to start to identify themes that emerge through sessions, surveys, and meetings. One of the things you do when you're looking at research is you start to code themes, right? So I just mentioned 2 themes that emerged in the June session with our board members, and they were things like diversity of program and comprehensive high school, right, or a comprehensive program. From tonight, we're going to start to see some themes emerge too. And I've already noticed them as I'm walking around. I know Dr. McKay took some pictures for me. Plus, we have the chat saved, right, that we'll be able to go back to.
We can do a comparison.
Yep, and we're going to start to go through and identify some of the themes that are coming across all areas. And then in probably late August, early September, I'm going to host a couple of more opportunities for people to talk about trade-offs. We're not going to talk about that tonight, but it's something you should think about. What are the things that are of the most value, and where are the things that we need to compromise as a community? And that's a really, really difficult conversation, but it's something we're going to have to start thinking about, because in the next couple of years, like we said in the first couple of slides, terrible state aid impact and COVID-19 could really debilitate us. So we're going to have to work together as a community to talk about the things that we most value, which was why we started this conversation, and how do we get to where we need to get on the budget. And then again, the last piece is we're starting to prioritize the values of our district for our children's preferred future. We use that phrase an awful lot here in the school district about the preferred future. But we are open for questions and concerns. I'm hoping that this gives you some idea of how this data is going to be used, along with the data from the other sessions, to inform the financial roadmap when we start looking at where the priorities are. It's not tonight, but this is kind of the first step as far as that goes. Chuck, did you want to add anything?
I think maybe it'd be interesting to hear some of our young people articulate why they feel some of these things are important. So I know that I'm putting you on the spot, but that's what a teacher does. So could someone stand up and tell me why some of the things that are on that poster resonate with you or are important to you, if you're a young person here? Wesley,
there are a few of them. We know it's you.
You don't have to stand up,
even
Wes.
with the mask on, we know it's you.
I guess just like being in the band and everything has given me like a lot of new experiences that like without it I wouldn't have gotten to do. Like just within the past few years, like I've been in a jazz band on like a trombone, which I've like recently learned. And even like in the pit orchestra with the show this past year.
Yeah.
I got to play like some interesting music that I wouldn't have been able to.
Good.
Thank you for sharing.
Young lady?
Okay. Okay. So when I think about the band program, not only when I think about it now, I'm thinking about my future. I'm thinking about music or music education. So band is really important for me to kind of take that step up to college. Also, I've been a part of so many different extracurricular activities. like jazz band, full orchestra, pit orchestra, everything. And I've also had opportunities to go in higher level bands, like county, area, region, and things like that. So.
And how has that informed your education here? I mean, how has that changed everything for you here?
I don't really know.
Well, all right, picture yourself as a student without that, but the possibility of being involved with other things. Has that changed who your friends are? Has that, okay, all right, so these are.
My friendships, it changed my relationship, it changes everything.
Yeah, yeah. That's what we're talking about with some of these values. When someone says value, what do you value? As opposed to possibly what someone else might value, or you know, what does it, when we ask for a community value, one of the first things we have to hear is the voices of people who are going through our system. What is it that we have put in place that people value? What are, and I think it came up right away, someone was saying teachers. Think about how important the instructors are in some of these fields and how much they become role models for folks. So those are all part of it. My man.
I'm going to talk about the music field first.
Yeah.
I feel like I definitely value community and growth, both individually and collectively. And I know for a fact, like the music field develops that and, you know, exhibits that and definitely takes into account those factors. And it is really a sense of community and people coming together. And a lot of great things come from that. And people go on to, you know, career paths with that knowledge of music. Or people like use those skills that they've learned through being together with the community of music and go on to implement that in their lives and careers in other ways too.
Can you talk about that for a minute? I want to know the skills you're developing in the music program that even if you choose not to go to school for music, that you'll apply in another career field. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's obviously so many people. And there's like 90 kids, like average, I would say. So that's like 8,900 kids you get to meet
Right.
and grow with and expand. Kids leave, they graduate, new people come in, it's new experiences each year. So it's like just like that.
So you're talking about building relationships,
Yeah.
right? Friendships.
And maturity and everything like that. You go from like being taught to teaching in a way with the students.
Okay. I appreciate that.
What about you?
I'm gonna start with band. Band has definitely been like a huge factor to like my life personally because I just came into high school last year, and when I came into band, I knew a few people. Like I knew a lot of sophomores, but definitely meeting like the juniors and seniors last year, they were so like supportive of everything that you did. Like especially like in other bands, not just marching band, like county band, area band, like they were so supportive of like, whatever place you got. And like when Emery said, in county band, area, and region band, and all state band, you meet so many like new people that you didn't even know you could ever meet. Like you meet people from Kittatinny and like, everywhere around New Jersey, and it's really interesting to see what type of people you can meet and what personalities people have.
Good. All right.
I don't think we have other students here, right? Did we hear
That's
from
good.
all our
We've heard from the
students?
students, yep.
So, you know, and I mean, when Dr. McKay was talking about values, part of it is the programs you're talking about, like band, and I hear meeting new students, right? How does, part of that is, you know, what is the value of that in the workplace or at college as you move on, right? Maybe it's the ability to have confidence. Maybe it's the ability to forge new relationships. Maybe it's the ability to problem solve or to work collectively with other people or collaboratively with other people. So those programs, I would think, are essential to your growth and development in those particular areas, and probably the reasons why most of our music people go on and be quite successful, because the skills that you're learning in that program translate into the things I just talked about, right? Working collaboratively, but that could also be said of a lot of other things too, right? So those are the things that I think we need to start, that we need to start taking a look at. But feedback from other people, folks who were maybe wanted to highlight something that they saw, on one of the bullets that the chat, didn't have a chance to talk about. Other feedback from the audience, people that are live with us. Adina?
Sure. The microphone's right here, Dina.
It's like the little circle. There's two of them. There's one here and there's one here.
Okay, can everybody hear me? We're good?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So one of our biggest values in our home is our teachers. Being an educator myself, I've taught classes of 23, I've taught classes of 16. And even though teachers are our biggest expenditure, there's a big difference between 16 and 23. And my biggest fear is when we moved here 11 years ago, class sizes were really small,
right,
compared to other towns.
Yeah.
I'm not naive enough to, be like, oh, they'll never grow. I'm nervous. I'm nervous about class sizes being 30, 32, 35, and it's a big deal. And I do understand the whole retire, not replace.
Yeah.
I do understand the expenses that go along with having amazing staff and amazing teachers. I don't want to see class sizes go into the 30s.
Sure.
That would be horrible.
Sure. And it has an impact on teaching and learning, right?
Absolutely.
Which is what you're saying.
Absolutely. And obviously, as students get older, they can have bigger classes. My class of 23 was kindergarten. It was horrible.
Right.
Horrible. So I really don't want to see that happening here.
I appreciate
that's
that.
a very important value.
And it was actually brought up by one of our board members. If anybody missed our meeting in June, they talked about us developing kind of a range of what's an acceptable class size per grade level. So that's something that we're working on in, within central office.
Absolutely.
Other folks who want to share thoughts, concerns, questions about what we talked about tonight.
Mrs. Geiger, you wrote on the STEM poster.
Yes,
and I know that your children have been involved with our STEM program from the beginning. So would you like to say something about that value?
Really, I think it speaks to itself that you got to stay current with the science and current with computers to be academically, in sync with the rest of the state, especially.
What about preparing for the future? Can you speak to that a little bit in your experiences with your children with STEM and robotics?
Well, my son has done the engineering program, which he really enjoyed and hopes to continue. And my daughter has done a lot of the sciences, biochemistry, that sort of thing, but she's really grown with band.
Yeah.
I don't know, I hate to see it, all the work that's gone into the engineering program.
Right.
See it go away.
For sure. Well, and
it's an expensive thing, but
yeah,
it's definitely valued.
It's been a major change in this high school in the last 5
absolutely
years.
Well, and look at the majors. I mean, at our last board meeting last Thursday, I read off some of the highlights of where our high school graduates, what they're going to school for. And the large majority of our graduates are in science-related fields, right? Science and engineering. So those, the preparation of our high school program, I think, is really moving them in that direction, right? Of finding their passion or their love in the sciences or in STEM, so that they can figure out what they want to do when they graduate. Some of those majors are really, really heavy duty and quite outstanding. And our kids are going to great colleges and universities too. We're quite proud of our graduates. But there were great things on there like innovation, out of the box thinking. And I have to tell you, if you talk to any large employers, maybe outside of public education, the things they look for really are the soft skills. They're looking for things like collaboration, innovation, problem solving, critical thinking. And STEM is definitely one of those programs that really supports that type of process, right? Anybody else want to share thoughts, concerns, ideas?
Yes.
Sorry. So I was just sort of thinking, like, I know when money gets tight, sometimes the knee-jerk reaction is to cut things that maybe some people perceive as less academic. Sorry. But I think one of the things I've really taken away from lockdown was just how important the arts and humanities are for humanity. My kids weren't. Sorry.
I love that you're getting reassurance from your daughter. I think that's wonderful.
You know, they weren't coping with the tragedy that this year was for them by doing quadratic equations. They were writing poetry and watching online concerts and singing and dancing. And I really want to speak to how important this is for, as we move forward, for their emotional well-being.
I appreciate
Right,
that.
and that's,
Thank you.
again, a major value.
It
Do we
is.
value that our children
Yep.
are healthy,
Yep.
that they are mentally well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other feedback from our folks that are here? Got a whole lot of stuff going on in the chat, which is always good to see. Good. And again, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
I feel like I'm kind of off topic, but on topic. What I'm not understanding, and Tanya had asked me, because you don't know with the fiscal budget coming down, if there's going to be any changes. But what are the first things that are looked at to be cut in a cut situation? What percentage of our students, and of course we're sitting here in the high school, and a lot of the students that are here are all the students
High school.
here are high
Yeah.
school. But I don't want to make this about high school because I don't know what a third grader needs right now, or a kindergartner needs right now.
Right.
But what are we talking about as far as when you're talking about cuts, potential, or core values?
Right.
Because that's very different at the young age to now. So what percentage across the board of our school system, because the high school is obviously with 4 grades in it and some of the most active things going on, because I can't imagine that DECA doesn't get the same value in their program, or the arts or photography don't get the same value as my student who gets band and sports. You know, I'm just a little confused.
So,
and then my question comes back to, if we're looking at cuts, what is the state really requiring from our students to graduate?
Right.
Because if we're getting cut, then a day is just what's needed. And I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm sure it's on the BOE site.
Right.
But what is needed for
well,
to graduate?
Interestingly enough, I'm going to answer those in reverse order. I'll start with the Department of Ed first. Interestingly enough, one of the reasons I think New Jersey public schools are the best in the nation is because the Department of Ed requires an awful lot, right? They do require things like world language. They do require things like phys ed and music. You know, they do require certain programs. They do require certain levels of technology. And a lot of other states don't have those same requirements. So one of the reasons I think New Jersey has such a strong public school system is because the Department of Ed requires an awful lot of us. At the same time, we're losing a whole heck of a lot of money, right? So I'm not going to talk about cuts tonight at all. And I apologize for that, but that's not what this conversation is about. And it doesn't mean we're not going to get there. It means we have to get there. But I need to hear from you guys tonight and from a few other folks a few more times, because it's really important that everybody has an opportunity to talk about the preferred future, not just for your daughter, but for our little ones, like you said, right? Because if I'm the parent of a second grader, and they're hearing this conversation and they know that we are talking about potential cuts down the road, I want them to hear from our high school students and say, you know, those things would be of value to my second grader when they get to the high school. And I don't want them to be something that has potential for the district to pull back on. So we will have to talk about, and I don't want to talk about cuts. Eventually, come September, I think we're going to start to talk about trade-offs, right? Talk about things that, are there other ways to fund programs that don't impact the district's budget the way that they're impacting us now? So this is a conversation that's going to continue. This is the first time that we're talking about it, but I don't want us to talk about cuts now. That's why we kind of couched it in values, right? And to talk about what are the things that we value? What are the priorities of our district? Again, what are the things that come up over and over and over again that our parents, our students, and our future parents of our little ones value in what they think their children are going to need when they graduate to be productive citizens, to have a career path, something they love to do, you know, fulfilling opportunities. All those things are really, really important because we will have to establish priorities based on this. But I don't want to go to cuts tonight.
Do college, the courses that the kids take, I forget what they're called,
Like the core courses or the prerequisites.
does that fall into a consideration also?
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of the considerations might be that we presently offer 22 AP classes. The farther a student moves up in the AP regimen, let's say they're moving into AP World History or AP Push, which is US history.
Right.
There may be a point where there's only 10 or 7 kids in the class. Well, the question is, do we value that as a community
right,
in order to keep it? Or do we start to say that the numbers per class should be at 10 so that we don't have a third grade class of 25? And I'm not saying those are the exchanges that we would make.
But those
your
are things
point
we're gonna be
about the
talking
elementary grade levels and how they're represented in a conversation like this is crucial. Because oftentimes we hear from older students who are now completely invested in their education. But we want to make sure that we hear all
We listen feedback from some of the younger ones too.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to talk a little bit about our experiences from elementary up, the school has always done a wonderful job of providing additional learning outside the classroom, extra math programs, geometry in 8th grade, like so, and music lessons starting so young. Music lessons privately are so expensive, so that the kids, it's wonderful that the kids have the opportunity to get a really great music education here, and I think that's going to give them an edge against other schools. So from a young age all the way up, I've seen a lot of extra offered to students at a variety of grade levels. So I think it's important to keep the academic excellence in the competitive world we live in, music being part of it, and also, you know, I really loved all the extra math and science that Mr. Rogers has done with the math.
Absolutely.
So to continue on that is good for every kid at every age.
Yeah. Well, and I think it was reflected probably on the music chart, and I didn't think about it, but things like scholarship opportunities, right? The fact that Vernon has a very comprehensive program allows for our students when they're applying to college, not only to get accepted, but also to apply for and obtain scholarships, because college is cost prohibitive. It's very expensive, right? So for our families, and I forget what the latest data was, Jen Shearhall shared it. I forget what the percentage of our students going to 4-year and 2-year schools. We still have the majority of our students going to either 4 or 2-year schools, but we don't have as many going to 4-year schools that we had at one time, I think, right?
Yeah, we're at 45%, 40 to 45% every year.
You know, so, and that's good, right? And then if you took add your 2-year, and I think maybe it's another 25% or something. So the majority of our students are still graduating and pursuing, right, college, either to 2-year or 4-year, but having that diversity of program you're talking about and the ability to have the advanced classes leads, I think, to high achievement, ability to get into colleges, and to obtain scholarships. So those are all things that need to be considered when we start to talk about the values of our district and how do we want to position our students for when they graduate, right? Our ultimate responsibility is how do we position them when they graduate Vernon High School and they're taking that next step into the world, whatever that is, right? So it's important we talk to you, but it's also important we hear from our younger students as well and those families.
So it sounds like as the next couple of weeks and months go by, I'm assuming you're going to prioritize your communications so that all parents understand that these might be short-term trade-offs, and that although they might be focused on just, you know, say their elementary kid right now, because I have a high schooler and an elementary school.
Right.
And I think as a parent, I'm willing to see my younger student, you know, scale back a little so that, you know, our high schoolers right now get through what they need, to have a little more time. Some people might not be, you know, able to see that or might be a little excited on that.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's going to be a lot of discussions about those trade-offs, but I think as a parent, I'll need to know ultimately, you know, how much are you going to trade off? You know, is it going to be staffing versus
absolutely?
We need to have information to be able to tell you what we think our preferred trade-offs are. So
that's a great point.
What I would want my trade-offs to be come a month from now without getting really good information.
Yep. I think that's excellent feedback. And I also love the idea of kind of marketing our next few sessions to a myriad of people, like we've heard a lot from high school folks, right? So we also want to make sure at the next couple of sessions that we get some elementary parents to talk to us a little bit about their priorities. And then it may be things like Ms. Luthner shared about like class size, right? Or it may be something else. I can't anticipate that. You know, my children aren't that little anymore. You know, but I think it's important that we hear from these people because that will help us get a holistic view of the entire district and what it looks like for our programs moving forward. Other thoughts?
Also, it would also impact the programs in place like cosmetology and
The CTEs. It may. I mean, it affected us this year. I mean, we had one of our CTEs that we are not offering next year because we had low enrollment, and that's a shame. But when you talk about trade-offs, right, and you think about the number of children being served versus the number of children being served in another program, we will have to start to make those difficult decisions, and that's a really good example in the next couple of years of what it looks like for us.
I thought that had an impact on the number of students going out that we had to pay to go out.
Yes, we're keeping more students than we have in the past.
Yeah.
Some of those programs have been very successful in keeping them here.
Yes, that's true.
That's a trade-off that we have.
Right, right. Yep. Is that retention? I know that's one of Ms. Mitchell's passions really, is talking about retaining as many of our Vernon students here in Vernon, because you're right, every time one of our 8th graders chooses not to come to Vernon High School, that's revenue that I was talking about before, tuition money that is essentially leaving our district and going, you know, to another high school. And it's important to try to keep as many students here as possible. First of all, because we think we do a fabulous job. We're hearing from our students and our parents saying that they've had very good learning experiences, comprehensive, diverse programs. But secondly, of course, because that revenue is important to keeping the district so that we can maintain programs that all of you feel are worthwhile to our students. Ms. Mitchell?
I just wanted to say that by you all coming here and speaking so passionately about the programs that you're interested in makes a big difference to the board. So when we're sitting down and we're looking at everything and trying to figure out everything, that's really important that we have participation. That's what's so great about tonight is that participation. It's really key to us understanding what the community is looking for. So I applaud the students that are coming out and speaking so passionately about their programs because it makes an enormous difference.
Yeah, no, I agree. Thank you, Kelly. Anybody else? And then we can.
Matt, what do we have online?
47 people are starting to finish. They've maybe entered some thoughts in the chat. And we've saved the chat, so we will have that. We're seeing things like mental health from Cindy Moser, AP classes, music science, life skills, fine arts. Mr. Taylor, he gave us a whole itemized list of all the things music does. Don't worry, Max, we see it. We got it. Thank you. Connections with students.
Yeah, good. Based on what we're hearing here, music and the arts. Yep.
And math. Yep. Good. Hi. You know what? I mean, my gratitude really for all of you coming out here live, and then of course for our people in person. Please, you know, spread the word that we are trying to reach out to as many stakeholders as possible. We really are trying to be transparent. I hope that the community is hearing that. You know, the board has had weekly meetings regarding COVID, right, and how we'll look at the reopening of schools. And this Thursday, we will have our final discussion until August, just for July. Don't worry, we'll be back in August. And that's right here in this room Thursday night at 7 o'clock. And that really is to talk about the reopening of the schools in September. But these sessions to talk about our core values and about how we start to put together our financial roadmap, what the trade trade-offs look like eventually. Those will happen again on the dates that were on the slide. So the dates are on the website. They're also on my superintendent's report, I think, from last board meeting. And we'll continue to send out reminders, but please tell other parents, your neighbors, your friends, that we want to hear from them. I want to echo what Kelly Mitchell said. I'm very grateful when we have people come out and tell us how you feel. It's important to know so that we can start to make sure that we're maintaining the most important things for our students as we move forward. So, Chuck, anything you can think of to close this out?
Just remember, if there's anybody in your community or your social group that's thinking of, as they move from high school from 8th grade to high school or from 6th grade on, and they're thinking of other schools, contact us. We'll give them a tour. We'll show them everything we have here. By the time we're finished, I'm sure they'll want to be here. So we want to keep our students. We want them to be with their friends and be with their community as much as possible.
Good. All right. Thank you so much for coming.
All right.
Have a great night.
Thank you.